Chapter 4.
Draco had a very limited range of possessions, Harry thinks an hour later. It's surprising. He assumed Draco would amass a number of expensive, but useless things. But the first 3 cartons are lined with neatly folded clothes. Well-made robes and quality cloaks, but hardly opulent or extravagant clothing. There's a small selection of ties for formal wear, and 3 tiny boxes that Harry first mistakes for ring boxes. But no, each one has a set of cufflinks inside. The next carton is filled with documents, tax files and the like. Draco's finances were kept in good order, Harry sees with a brief skim of the documents. No apparent investments, but his spending seemed quite limited. The 4th carton is filled with personal possessions, items of which Harry can only guess the history. A set of photographs of picturesque countryside, several books, a well-thumbed car manual, and a set of Hogwarts textbooks, a notebook, an origami rose, a bottle of aged whiskey, and a school tie. When Harry picks up the tie, it unravels and sends a prefect's badge spinning across the floor. But beneath the tie, he discovers, is a small white jewelry box. More cufflinks? He snaps it open. Draco's wedding ring. It's a plain platinum band. Rather inexpensive looking, Harry thinks. He turns the band around, looking for an engraving, but there is none. The ring looks like it's never been worn. He packs up the carton and goes to find Narcissa. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. It can't be all of it. I assure you, Narcissa says, setting her needlework aside, it is. Harry restlessly paces the room. It looks awfully familiar and he realizes, with a jolt, that it's the same room that was in Narcissa's last memory of Draco. Narcissa sits by the gilded fireplace. On the wall opposite Harry is the family portrait at which Draco had spent so long gazing. There's practically nothing. Clothes, some paperwork, a few books, and a couple of personal items. You're saying that's everything in Draco's life? Draco became very. Narcissa pauses, then picks her needlework up again. The war changed him. The war changed everyone. Harry's voice is sharp, and he wonders why he feels irked by Narcissa's words. In any case, Narcissa says, drawing a long thread of red through the eye of a needle, I assure you that all of Draco's possessions are in those boxes. Where's the rest? There must be other stuff. You've got his Hogwarts textbooks and a school tie. What about his cauldron set, then? Or his robes? Or his Quidditch stuff? He'd definitely have that. Draco was always unbearably smug about his flying skills, Harry thinks. Narcissa shakes her head. I don't know why he kept the textbooks, but he sold or discarded everything else from Hogwarts. Not his broom, at least. Narcissa nods. I assume he sold his broom. Both Astoria and myself removed all his possessions when I was granted the rights to sell his house. We collected every item. Harry is silent for a moment. Do you mind if I take the cartons with me? Narcissa says nothing for a long moment, pushing the needle through the cloth. I don't wish for his possessions to be lost or destroyed, she says at last. I'll keep it in the evidence archives. Anyone could access it. My office, then. Narcissa is still hesitant, Harry sees. He wonders if the previous case officers misplaced seized possessions and gives her what he hopes is a reassuring look. I'll keep the carton in my home, then, and put a disillusionment charm on it. Narcissa considers that. I'll accept those terms, she says, then stands up. Would you like to see the car? Yes, he would. She accompanies him to a side door, an old servant entranceway, Harry guesses, and gives him directions to the converted stables. He sets off into the gardens, following a path that cuts directly across manicured lawns and past a weeping willow with a stone bench beneath it. He can see the stables, flanked by well-tended flower beds, and as he unlocks the bolted door and steps inside, he can still smell the rich aroma of riding leather. The hooks on the wall, no doubt once used to hold tack, now hold secateurs, hedge trimmers, trowels, and grafters. Harry manages to squeeze past the bags of potting mix and fertilizers, making his way through a narrow doorway and into the main stables. The stalls have been removed, but the sweet scent of hay still lingers. There's some gardening items in here too, rakes and brooms leaning against the wall, but most of the room is taken up by the car, hidden beneath a large swathe of canvas. Harry drags the canvas away, causing clouds of dust and dirt to drift into the air, and detects deterrent spells woven into the material. Most likely to stop rats and other vermin from getting near the car and chewing wiring, Harry thinks. The car is in beautiful condition. A 2002 Renault Megane Coupe, Harry recalls from the car manual found in the cartons. A nice car, but hardly something flashy or outrageously luxurious. It wouldn't look out of place parked in Muggle London somewhere, and maybe that was Draco's intention. He rests a hand against the bonnet, feeling the cold metal beneath his skin, polished smooth. After a moment, he steps forward and tugs on the driver door handle. Locked. Alohomora. If Draco's warded the car with magic, the spell won't work. But it does. Harry tries the handle again, and this time, the door swings open. It's the same car that was in Astoria's memory, he thinks. The interior is pale gray in comparison to the charcoal-colored exterior, and is just as clean. At first, Harry suspects someone scourgified the car, but then he spots a handful of Muggle coins and some receipts in the center console compartment. He pauses a moment, then gets into the car and shuts the door. It feels strange, sitting in the driver's seat of Draco Malfoy's car. He glances into the rear vision mirror, half expecting to see a ghost of himself sitting in the back seat. What's the point of that? Sitting in a box, only going where someone else takes you. Harry shakes his head, as if trying to shake away his thoughts, and turns his attention to the receipts. One is dated September 9th, 2003, the date of Draco's disappearance, and shows that he purchased £20 worth of petrol. Harry checks the timestamp, 10:26 a.m., at least 5 hours before he arrived in Diagon Alley. The second receipt is dated May 9th, 2003, at 11:29 p.m., and shows that Draco purchased £20 worth of petrol again, in Truro, Cornwall. A fair distance from East Devon. What was Draco doing there, so late at night? Harry's eyes flick to the rear vision mirror again, as if he'll find the answer hiding behind him. He leans across to the glove box and opens it. There's the ownership papers inside. Draco purchased the car from a dealership in Essex on the 31st of July 2002. Harry smiles slightly at the date and puts the papers aside. There's also a large book that Harry has to work hard to free from the glove box. 2003, Great Britain Road Atlas, he sees. He sets it aside and peers into the glove box. There's an auto-inking quill, but nothing else. Harry frowns and turns to the road atlas, opening it up. Immediately, a plastic rectangular card falls out. Draco's license. Harry studies the photograph. If he looks closely enough, he can see a faint smile on Draco's face. He looks younger than he should, Harry thinks. Or perhaps it's just the first time he's seen Draco smiling since he began this case. The license doesn't hold much new information for Harry. It has Draco's name, birth date, address. The license was granted on the 20th of June 2002 and expires in 2012. Still valid. Harry slips the license into his pocket, although he doesn't know why. It's unlikely to give new information no matter how much he studies it. He places the rest of the items back in the glove box, then leans back and stares through the windscreen and at the timber walls of the stables. Would the car start if he tried it? Harry drops his gaze to the steering wheel. There's 2 slightly faded patches on it, where Draco must have rested his hands constantly. Harry lifts his hands and places them over the same patches. Would you like the key? Harry jumps and swears loudly, then flushes as he realizes Narcissa is standing near the driver's side. I didn't see you come in, he says, wondering if he should apologize for swearing. Narcissa doesn't seem particularly offended, however. She's studying him intently. It's strange, she says, to see someone sitting in it. Can you drive? No, Harry admits. I mean, with flu networks and portkeys and operating and everything, it seemed a bit redundant to get my license. Narcissa nods. I never understood why Draco bothered with these ridiculous muggle contraptions. She holds out a plastic rectangle and Harry stares at it uncomprehendingly. It's the key, she says with an air of faint irritation. Harry accepts it, turning it over in his hands. This isn't a car key. There should be a little silver key, probably with a black grip on it and a button or something. I assure you, it is the key, Narcissa says, her voice a little chilly. I would not have assumed that you knew even less about the Muggle world than me. It doesn't look like a car key, Harry says defensively. Perhaps it's new technology? He wishes he'd kept up with the Muggle world. I mean, how do you open the car door with this? Draco would just open the door, Narcissa says. As long as the key was in his pocket or in his hand, the door would open. Harry hunts around the steering wheel, looking for the ignition. There's a button with start on it, and he presses it doubtfully. Nothing happens. Battery needs replacing, Harry says decisively, pleased to at least know something. He tries a reparo spell, but it doesn't work. I'll have to research automative spells, he says, getting out of the car and shutting the door. Narcissa covers the car with the canvas again, and Harry watches the sleek lines disappear beneath the folds of dusty cloth. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. When he goes to the apartment that night, Ginny wrinkles her nose after hugging him. You smell odd. Like hay and leather. Harry laughs. Long story. I was in some old stables. Your latest case is a missing horse, then? Ginny nods at the boxes Harry had set down beside the front door. Oh, I meant to tell you. We're playing the Stratford Skylarks on Saturday. There's going to be an international Quidditch scout there. That's brilliant news, Ginny, Harry says warmly. It's long been a dream of hers to gain a place on the English national team. I know, but the whole team's nerve-wracked about it. Gwen's called us all in for a special debriefing tonight, and we'll be practicing all tomorrow. I'm sorry, I know we were supposed to be going to Ron and Hermione's for dinner tomorrow, but it's all right, I know how important this is for you. Thanks for understanding, Ginny says, kissing him briefly before grabbing her well-thumbed copy of Practical Quidditch Strategies. The debriefing should only take an hour or so. Unlikely. The team captain, Gwen, could get a bit overenthusiastic and micromanage every detail. She reminds Harry uncannily of Oliver Wood. See you soon, he says, and she nods and steps out the door, disapparating a moment later. Harry sits at the counter, but the apartment seems too silent. So he goes out onto the balcony and watches the trains come and go and listens to the noise of the city. If he removes his glasses and tilts his head slightly, he can imagine that the River Thames is the Hogwarts lake, shining in the dark light of dusk, and beyond it he can almost see the green Quidditch pitch, smell the freshly cut grass. And if he looks over his shoulder, he'll see the towers of Hogwarts reaching into the azure sky. He looks over his shoulder. The white walls of his apartment greet his gaze. So don't look back, then. He reaches into his pocket and takes out the driver's license, angling it in the thin light spilling from the apartment. Draco's face always stays the same, though, locked in a moment from 4 years ago. In the streets below, someone is whistling Blow the Wind southerly again. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The following day, Harry receives an owl from Astoria asking him to visit that afternoon. He arrives around 2 o'clock, wondering if she'll give him more memories. She does. She takes him to the kitchen first, however, and makes a cup of tea. For once, her husband is home. He's sitting at the dining table, Sophie nestled in his lap as she tries to build a house from blocks. Matt, Astoria says, this is Harry Potter. He's trying to find Draco. Matthew looks up, still laughing over something Sophie did. He's a broad-shouldered man, with thick chestnut hair and brown eyes crinkled with laughter. Someone who smiles easily. Harry thinks, and well-suited to Astoria's personality. He waits for Matthew to gape at him, or at least stare at his scar. But not a trace of recognition seems to cross Matthew's face. "Hello," he says cheerfully, holding out a hand. Harry shakes it. "Nice to meet you. Had much luck finding Astoria's mysterious ex-husband, then." "He's not mysterious," Astoria says with exasperation. "He lived in a manor, you said. I feel like you two probably lazed around all day, eating grapes off gold platters and laughing at us peasants." Astoria laughs and shoves at him playfully. "You think you're hilarious, don't you?" "Little bit." "Hey, Harry, are you a wizard?" Harry stares at him, not sure if he's joking. "Yes," he ventures. "Oh, so there's like a wizard police sort of thing? Like Scotland Yard, but magic." "Stop quizzing Harry, he's here to talk about the case," Astoria says, and Matthew shrugs. "All right. I think it's time for someone's nap, anyway." And he stands up, lifting a helplessly giggling Sophie over one shoulder as he walks from the room. Harry waits a moment, listening to Sophie's giggles fade, and then turns to stare at Astoria. "You married a muggle? Are you surprised?" Astoria puts the kettle on. "Well, quite frankly, yes. You're pureblood, you said, and, I mean, not that I have a problem with it, of course not, but..." Astoria takes pity on him. "I understand. We all make certain assumptions, don't we?" He studies Astoria as she pours the tea. "I watched the memories." "And?" She walks over, setting a mug in front of him. "I don't know." He chews his lip, thinking. "Draco's car, did he drive a lot?" "Whenever he felt like it, yes. Sometimes he'd just get in the car and drive. He went to Truro a week before he disappeared." "Yes." Astoria sips her tea. "He said he wanted to see where the British mainland ended. Or started." Astoria looks up at him, surprise etched across her face. "Or started," she says slowly. "He said that too. Or started." Draco likes circles. Astoria studies him for a long moment. "I met Matthew in 2001, she says. "I was in a bookshop in Exeter, and we both reached for the same book at the same time." She looks away, a small smile gracing her face. "We had a coffee together, and by the end of the week, I was hopelessly in love." "But you married Draco in 2002. Harry's slightly bewildered by the sudden change in topic. Astoria nods. "My parents, well, they might not be Voldemort supporters, but they're still old-fashioned. If I had married a muggle, I would have broken my father's heart. My mother might be more understanding, but my father..." Harry takes another sip of tea, wanting to interrupt and ask questions, but knowing he must let Astoria tell her story. "My parents were desperate to procure a good marriage for me. They arranged for me to meet with the Malfoys. Draco was perfectly civil, but I saw something in him that was also a part of me. We were both acting the roles we had been assigned, wearing masks given to us by others. After we became friends and then best friends, I told Draco I could never truly love him, and I intended to marry just to please my parents." Astoria pauses to take a long sip of tea. When she sets the mug back down, she begins tracing patterns on the table. Drawing circles, Harry notices and wonders if she realizes. "And?" he prompts. Astoria glances up at him. "And Draco said the same." Harry waits, but Astoria doesn't elaborate and he thinks he understands. Anyway. "I assume this will stay between us," Astoria says after a moment. Harry nods, then changes the topic. "Those boxes at the manor, are they truly all of Draco's possessions?" "Yes." "Just those in the car?" Astoria straightens up, looking attentive. "You saw the car?" "Oh, it's been a long time since I saw that thing. I almost miss it. Almost." Harry hesitates. "It makes me wish I'd learned to drive." Astoria smiles. "I've got another memory for you. I wasn't sure which one to pick, but I think it's the right one." She searches her pockets for a moment, then hands him a vial. Take care of it. I will. Harry departs, thoughts churning like wind-tossed waves. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. He wants to view the memory straight away, but he's supposed to be visiting Ron and Hermione for dinner. He goes straight to the apartment and runs a comb through his hair before flying directly to Ron and Hermione's place. He arrives right in the middle of an argument. He walks towards the kitchen, where delicious smells and angry voices are coming from. I asked him outright, and he said no. Oh, is that how you approach this matter? Just wandered past him and said, with a mouthful of sandwich, I imagine having problems with Ginny then. I didn't have a mouthful of sandwich, Ron says defensively just as Harry steps into the kitchen. Ron stares at him. Hermione, her back to Harry, quickly turns around. Oh, she says. Hello, Harry. You think me and Ginny are having problems? Harry says slowly. Hermione coughs. No, of course not. She hesitates. Because you're not, are you? No. Ron said you've been staying late at the office a lot lately. I did not. Ron says quickly. I said, he's been staying great at the office lately, and you just misheard me. Staying great. Hermione raises her eyebrows. Yes, that wasn't really a good save, Ron, Harry mutters. Anyway, it's true, isn't it? Ron says shamelessly. Ginny's been unbelievably busy, really throwing herself into Quidditch lately. That's because it's her job, Harry says. And I've been busy with my job. And that's all. See? No problems, Ron begins cheerfully, but Hermione levels him with a look. All right, fine, she says, turning back to Harry, but I've got one last question for you, Harry. When was the last time you spoke to Ginny? Harry laughs. We're not that busy. We do still talk. Last night, she told me she had to head out for a debriefing. I didn't finish the question, Hermione says, narrowing her eyes. When was the last time you spoke to Ginny, about something other than work? Harry gapes at her. What? Well, loads of times, of course. What sort of question is that? I mean, just this morning, she asked me to pick up a carton of milk on the way home. Well, didn't talk. She left a note on the fridge because she came home late after work last night and was really tired and yesterday, or maybe the day before, she asked if I could renew her Quidditch weekly subscription. Hermione is looking at him, her eyes still narrowed and expression unchanged. Ron is shaking his head and giving Harry a pitying expression. Well, that's that, Ron says heavily, dropping himself into the nearest dining chair. You're having problems with Ginny, and Hermione is right again. Would you stop saying I'm having problems? I'm not. Everything is fine. Maybe we don't talk as much as we should. Or at all, Ron says helpfully, and Harry gives him a look. Whose side are you on? He says incredulously. There are no sides. Accept your defeat with honor. He takes a swig of butterbeer. I am not. Ginny and me are fine, and this weekend, I'll take her somewhere nice. Dinner at a fancy restaurant, and we'll chat about everything. Okay, Ron says, in tones that imply Harry's started ranting about Raxperts and Nargles. You do that. Yes, Hermione says, you do that. And come and tell us all about it. I will. Fine, Hermione says shortly. Good. She strides into the kitchen and starts stirring a pot on the stove. Ron fetches Harry a butterbeer and sets it down on the table. You could have been a lot more supportive, Harry mutters, sitting down beside Ron and opening the butterbeer. I'm your oldest friend. Yeah, well, Ron says, glancing over at Hermione and lowering his voice, friendship can do a lot of things, but it can't get you a shag. Harry chokes on his butterbeer. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Later on, after he's farewelled Ron and Hermione and returned to the apartment, he remembers what they said. He traces a hand over the kitchen counter. It's immaculately clean as ever. There's a fruit bowl on one end of the counter, although it doesn't contain any fruit. Just some receipts and a handful of nuts and sickles. He looks across the room to the dining table. A quill and inkwell in one corner, the edges of the table already gathering dust again since his last scourgify. The white walls gleam, untouched by pictures or photographs. If Harry went missing, who would comb through the possessions of his life, and what would they think? He has nothing in this apartment. Most of his possessions are kept in his Gringotts vault. Temporarily, he'd said, but that had been 3 years ago when he first proposed to Ginny. And he somehow never got round to unpacking. Or maybe he'd secretly hoped the apartment was temporary. Somewhere to pause in his journey, but not the destination. Warm light spills from around the corner, where the bedroom is. Ginny will be there, reading Quidditch Weekly. He steps around the corner and smiles at her. She's sitting in bed, intently reading a copy of the Quidditch magazine, and jumps when Harry clears his throat. "Oh! I didn't hear you come in. Have fun with Ron and Hermione. Would have been better if you'd been there." "I know," Ginny says apologetically. "I only got back from practice 20 minutes ago. Gwen reckons me and Pearson are the best players, and we're the ones the scout might be taking notes on. She must have made me practice the dives a dozen times." "When was the last time you spoke about something other than work?" "Sounds stressful," Harry says, taking off his robes and hanging them behind the door. "You know, we should do something relaxing next week. Just us, together." Ginny raises her eyebrows, smiling. "Special occasion?" "Didn't realize I needed a reason to spend time with you." She laughs. "Well, I can't do Saturday. We're attending a Holyhead match to take notes, so I'll be gone Friday night too. Sunday I've got debriefings." "How about Thursday?" "I'll ask Gwen." "Well, let me know and I'll make a reservation." "Sounds good." "See? They're wrong," he tells himself. Everything's fine. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Monday morning finds Harry in his office again, watching Astoria's newest memory. The familiar rolling motion hits him and he knows immediately he's in a car again. Draco's car. The Renault Megane. It feels strange now that he's physically been in the car. Like two versions of him are intersecting. There's an odd duality about it. Astoria is in the front passenger seat, looking sleepy. It's nighttime, and they're driving beside a river, Harry realizes. He presses his face to the glass, seeing the faint twinkling lights of houses reflected in the river, and for a moment it feels like they're driving through the night sky itself, stars above and beneath. He turns away from the window, moving closer to the middle of the back seat, and looks at the rear vision mirror. Draco is gazing ahead, his mouth small and serious, his gray eyes seeming to search the road ahead. "We could just disapparate to visit your mother, you know," Astoria says sleepily. "It's a 2-hour drive, for Merlin's sake." "I've driven to Glasgow." Draco's eyes never leave the road. "I remember that." Astoria shifts, resting her head against the glass and closing her eyes. "I don't know why you'd go there." "Because I hadn't been there before. Because I wanted to." "You don't know what you want, Draco." He drives around a bend in the road. Harry watches the way he grips the steering wheel, flexing the tendons in his wrist. There's a mesmerizing confidence in Draco's hands, in the way he effortlessly steers, the way he drives without really thinking about it. Draco's eyes flick up to the rear vision mirror, meeting Harry's gaze. "No, I don't," he says, and it takes Harry a moment to remember who Draco's replying to. Draco drives on, the river and sky and road melting into a field of stars as the memory slowly disintegrates. Harry surfaces from the pensive, inhaling deeply like he's coming up for air. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. He visits Astoria the next day. She laughs when she opens the door. "You're becoming a regular visitor. I suppose you'll be wanting a cup of tea then." "Thanks," Harry says, following her to the kitchen. "Did you like the memory?" Astoria asks, measuring out a spoonful of sugar for Harry's mug. "It's one of my favorites." Harry hesitates, busying himself clearing a spot at the table and sitting down before he speaks. Do you think Draco chose to leave? Astoria pauses. You think Draco was unhappy with his life? You'd know better than me, but I think he was searching for something. A memory, a state of mind, a new life, I don't know. Astoria pours the tea. I often said that to him in a roundabout way. I joked that he was driving everywhere to try and find a place that didn't exist. Harry stares unseeingly at the steam curling gently from the mugs of tea. Matthew's a muggle. Well, yes. Would he teach me how to drive? Astoria starts to laugh. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Harry's first driving lesson is on Wednesday at 4 p.m. He arrives at Astoria's punctually. Matthew arrives late from work and barrels through the front door with arms full of blueprints. Where's my princess? He shouts, and Sophie lets out a shriek of glee, coming down the hallway so quickly she nearly falls over. Matt's an architect, Astoria says, noticing Harry staring at the blueprints. That's interesting. No, it's bloody not, Matthew says, setting the blueprints down and gathering his daughter into a bone-crushing hug. So, ready for your first lesson? He says over Sophie's head. You haven't got your own car, have you? You'll be learning in mine, then. Not bad a car for a learner. They wander out to the car, a white sedan, and Harry tries to discuss monetary payment, feeling rather like Matthew should be compensated for all the inevitable moments of frustration and despair. Matthew quickly quashes that notion and instead demands Harry pays him with stories of the wizarding world. She's awful, he says, gesturing to Astoria. Tells me all about this amazing world, then complains every time I try and ask questions. Oh, Matt, it's just a castle in Scotland. Why are you so interested? Or, it's called fluing and I'm in no mood to explain it. Harry laughs. I understand. I didn't know about the wizarding world either, not until I was 11, and everyone was always rushing through things and acting like I should know all of it already. Quit chatting and get in the car already, Astoria says impatiently. I want to see how badly Harry screws up. Leave him alone, Matthew says amiably. You only tried to drive once, and you went straight into the ornamental pond and shouted at me for 20 minutes afterwards. Astoria frowns at him and Harry tries to unsuccessfully hide his smile. Soon enough, however, his smile has been replaced by nervous apprehension. Matthew spends a good 15 minutes running through safety before Harry even starts the car. All right, so, you've checked your mirrors, adjusted your seat, put your seatbelt on, got your foot on the brake, turn the ignition, then. The car rumbles to life. Harry feels terrified and wonders how much the car cost and how mad Matthew might be if Harry, too, drove into the pond. Foot still on the brake? Good. Handbrake off. Right. Good, good. Now, ease your foot onto the accelerator a little. The car jerks forward violently and Harry, horror-struck, slams the brake on and comes to an equally violent stop. Matthew starts laughing. Bit trigger happy, aren't you? Look at your face. Calm down. No harm done. Try again. Go on. Foot off the brake. By the end of the hour, Harry has managed to successfully drive to the end of the driveway without giving either himself or Matthew whiplash. That, Matthew declares, deserves a butterbeer. Over which they'll discuss exactly how a portkey works, of course. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Harry arrives home at 9 o'clock that night. Ginny is in bed, reading a book. You're back late, she says, idly turning a page. Got stuck chatting to some people about the case. He'll tell Ginny about all of it tomorrow, he thinks. Their date. I made a reservation at Citrus Moon, by the way. Ginny frowns. What? Oh, tomorrow night. I'd nearly forgotten. Citrus Moon? Is that a new restaurant? It's a muggle one. Oh! Well, that'll be something new, at least. I'm looking forward to it. Harry disappears into the bathroom, planning to take a long and relaxing shower. Learning to drive, he thinks, is extraordinarily stress-inducing.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this chapter, please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell to stay updated with more audiobooks. Happy listening!